Hey guys, this week I'm going to show you how I made this turkey collar. Stick around. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of BS with AJ. As I said before, this week I'm going to be showing you how I made a turkey collar or a pot collar, or whatever you know it is. I've heard them called all kinds of different things, but we're going to be starting off using a piece of cherry. You can use whatever type of wood you'd like. Certain woods sound better than others. There is a lot of discussion about what sounds the best, so make sure to do your own research about things like that. But if you like videos like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting BS with AJ on Patreon so we can do bigger and better projects for you guys. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know when I post new videos. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down in the comment section below. Let's go ahead and get started, guys. Alright guys, this week, like I said before, we're going to be making a turkey collar. Now, I would want to go ahead and tell you up front that you need to do your own research on this to decide what type of wood you want to use, what type of strikers you want to make, what type of soundboard, what kind of scratching surface, and the spacing between the soundboard and the scratching surface, your hole pattern, all that kind of stuff. There's a big discussion on what works better and everything. Everybody has different opinions. But I'm just going to show you the way that I make mine. If you make yours differently, that's great. If you want to make yours differently, that's great too. If you know how to make it sound better, definitely go for it. But like I said, there's a lot of discussion. Everybody has different opinions on this, so this is how I normally make mine, just to throw it out there. So if you're a turkey calling expert and you think that I'm not doing it the way you like it, I apologize, but these sound good to me. So anyway, as you see, I've already got a hole pattern here made. I like using 8 holes. And I normally I use a 11/32 drill bit for this. And the reason I do that is because the center hole here is drilled all the way through, and that's how I'm going to be attaching it to my lathe. I like using this 3/8 inch, it's a bottle stopper mandrel actually, and it's 1 inch by 8 TPI, so it screws directly onto my lathe. I like that a lot. Now if you have a 3/4 by 16 TPI, you can probably get a different adapter to make this one work, or maybe you can find a mandrel that'll actually screw right onto yours without any issue. But this is what I like to do, and this way I can use the same drill bit for all these holes, and it still sounds good. So anyway, you're looking for a piece. I like usually using rough sawn lumber, which is 1 inch thick, is what I normally use. This has already been surfaced down. It's 7/8 of an inch thick right now because it's already been surfaced down on both sides. Normally, whenever you use a rough sawn piece, you're going to have to put it on here on your lathe and surface it. And I will have to do that just a little bit, but it's not going to be as major as if I was using a rough sawn piece of lumber. You'd end up with a piece that's about the same thickness anyway, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I'm looking for a piece. Normally, my pattern is about 4 inches in diameter. So I normally trace that onto here and cut it wider just to make sure I can get it down to that size without any issues at all. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to have my holes facing out because I want to work on the outside first. Now you'll notice I have one hole in the center drilled all the way through, and these 8 holes around it are not. Now you can drill them all the way through, it don't matter, that's really up to you. I usually make mine about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch deep, and the only reason I do that is so that way I know when I'm getting close to the edge here. I like making mine, I want to make my wall thickness and my bottom thickness about the same. So that's all, again, that's all preference. You can do it however you prefer it. If you want to, you can use these holes to gauge how deep you make yours. So if you only want a 1/4 inch thick on the bottom, then you can drill these exactly a 1/4 inch deep. And once you hit those holes, you'll know you're right at the point that you want to stop at. But anyway, so what we're going to do, I've already got my holes drilled and all this thing. We're going to go ahead and screw this directly onto the mandrel here. You can use a tap to get this exactly right if you want to. I normally don't, just because this is a hard wood and it's going to be able to hold up to it pretty well anyway. Once I get it flat, flush up against this, it's pretty true. And again, we're going to come back and surface this just a little bit anyway, so that's not a big deal. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and turn this round, and then we're going to surface this. So we'll go ahead and do that first, and we'll get back to you. Alright guys, we went ahead and turned this down round. I put a little bit of a concave right here. That way you can grip it a little bit easier. I've already surfaced the bottom, which again didn't take very much since this has already been planed down. If you were doing rough sawn lumber, it would take a little more and it'd get a little thinner, but again, that's not a big deal. So I went ahead and did that. Now what we're gonna do is round over this edge so we don't have that sharp edge. And then we're gonna go ahead and sand this from 80 grit up through 220. And we're gonna go ahead and put a finish on this. So that way, whenever we turn this around to do all our inside work, we're already done with the outside. We don't have to worry about mounting it backwards again or anything like that. We'll already be done with it. So let's go ahead and start doing that now. Alright, now we have the back finished and ready to go. We're going to go ahead and surface the front first to make sure it's nice and flush. And then we're going to go ahead and mark where we want our glass or our slate or whatever you're going to be using. We're going to mark that section so that way we know where we need to cut, how deep we need to cut it. We got to make a shoulder for that. And then we have to make a little pedestal in the center here to hold your soundboard. So we'll go ahead and start doing that now. Alright guys, now the first thing we're going to do is set our boundaries. The first one you want to set is where your glass is going to set, or your slate, or whatever your top surface is going to be. I'm using a set of calipers for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the lathe on at a really low speed, and we're going to set this one, we're going to actually touch it with this one, and we're going to, if you touch this side here, it will flip out of your hand, so you need to be careful. But we're going to basically slowly put this in here, and where this scratches, you'll see a line form over here, and you want to make sure that those line up. I'll show you what I mean here real quick. We'll turn this on real slow. Alright, so you want to kind of eyeball what looks to be about right, and then you'll just barely touch this one side here, and you'll start seeing that line. I don't know if you can actually see that on camera or not, but basically you want to keep moving until those line up pretty close. There we go, that's dead on right there. So I'll make that a little deeper so I know which one to go off of. Alright, so that is going to be the outside of our glass. Alright, now that we have our line set, I'm going to be using a diamond parting tool, which is about 1/8 of an inch thick, that's going to make our shoulder for our glass to set on. And you also want to make sure and leave a pedestal here in the middle for your soundboard to set on. That is going to be lower than your shoulder here. But so the first thing I like to do is normally turn out the middle section here that I know is going to be turned away, and get rid of a lot of that material so it's quicker and easier to turn down to get our height right. So we'll go ahead and start doing that now, and I'll show you how I go about making our pedestal the right height and everything like that. guys, we went ahead and got our shoulder here to hold our glass in place. And we've got our pedestal to where it's touching the bottom of the glass right now. Now the way we did that is we just kind of tested it and then pulled it back out and hit it a little bit, put it back in and all that kind of stuff. So basically now we have our pedestal and our lip right here, our shoulder for our glass, the same height. Alright, so now normally what I like to do is I'm going to be using a piece of slate. A small piece, it's a 3-inch piece of slate. And what I want to do is I've got this gauge that I want to set the depth of this plus 3/16 of an inch. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to get from the top of the pedestal measured to the back, the very bottom of that. Let me show you here. So we'll get this tool here. Alright, we've got our depth set now to the very bottom from the top of our pedestal. Alright, so now what we're going to do is take 3/16 of an inch plus the thickness of whatever material that you're using. Depending on what it is, sometimes the double strength glass that I like using is about 1/8 inch. This here, the piece of slate, is about 3/16 of an inch. Alright, so we're going to be taking 3/8 of an inch off of this because this is 3/16 of an inch and I want 3/16 of an inch between the top of this and the bottom of that glass. So 3/16 and 3/16 would actually be 3/8. So now what we're going to do, like I said, we'll take this measurement here and subtract 3/8 and then we're going to slowly turn this down and test it with the measurement that we put on here. Alright guys, and now that we have it all set up, all we have to do now, if you like that thick rim right here, which is going to protect you if you have glass or something like that, you can leave it. If you want it to be thinner, then you can go ahead and turn it down smaller. But I'm going to leave it thicker like this since I'm putting that glass on here. So basically all we're going to do now is we're going to sand the inside here, and then we're going to go ahead and put a light finish on the inside just to protect the wood from any moisture, since there is holes and moisture could build up on the inside of this. Once we get done doing that, like I said, we'll go ahead and put a finish on there real quick, and then we'll start actually putting our caul together. Alright guys, so now that we have the body of it made, this particular caul that I'm making is going to be glass over slate. So basically what that means is we're going to have a slate soundboard, which is what's going to go on this pedestal here. And then we're going to have a piece of glass go up on the shoulder that we made here. So I'm going to be using a CA glue. I've seen a lot of different people use different types of glues. Whatever you feel is comfortable using. But I'm going to be putting a decent layer of this CA glue that takes about 30 minutes to dry. I've seen people use Gorilla Glue, that gel, the super glue type thing. But again, it's whatever you want to use. I've also seen people use clamps for doing this. And that will be fine if that's the way you want to do it. But honestly, I just like taking a can and setting it right on top here. The main thing you want to do when you're putting your soundboard in is make sure it's evenly spaced all the way around. Because you don't want it to be touching one side and have a big open area on that side. It's going to look bad, especially if you have slate with a glass where you can actually see through there. But also it could affect the sound of it, so you need to be a little careful with that. So I put mine in here. We're going to set our our can on top of here to let it dry. It's probably take really about 30 minutes or so. And we'll come back and we'll go ahead and put our glass on top of that. Alright guys, now what we're going to do is go ahead and put a bead of glue around this edge, and we're going to put in our glass, or our scratching surface. So we're just going to put a small amount of glue right here on this shoulder. We're going to make sure that the grain's straight. Set it right into place. I was using a little suction cup for this. You can do it just by hand and drop it right into place. That's up to you. And then we're going to do the same thing. Put our can right over the top of it and let it dry. Well, here's our final product. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting BS with AJ on Patreon so we can do bigger, better projects for you guys. Alright, we'll see you next week.